Hello, my loves. Welcome into this Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse reading for those who have this alignment in their 11th house. There it is. So this reading is for you if you have Capricorn rising and or if 14 degrees 58 minutes of Scorpio shows up in your 11th house. If you haven't already watched the introduction to this reading and you want to learn more about what it is that we're doing here in this reading, you can find the link in the description or the one popping up on YouTube. So the houses in the Zodiac story represent where things happen for us. And so where this full moon is happening for you is in the 11th house. This is the house of groups ruled by the 11th sign of the Zodiac, which is Aquarius. So this deals with the area of your life that involves community, friendship, charity, wishes, and humanity. The lighting is getting interesting here. It was way too bright before, and now it's very dark, so sorry about that. Let's see if we can turn the light up. There, how's that? So this full moon eclipse is happening in this area of your life, meaning that for the next 6 months, your relationship with the groups, the work you're doing for humanity, the work you're doing in your community, the friendships that you have are going to be under significant focus and it being influenced by the unfolding of these astrological events. And so as we go to the Light Seer Tarot for an affirmation for you for this lunar phase, we're also going to be relating this affirmation to the area of your life dealing with groups and looking at how this helps to free you from the human condition or how this relates to the human condition content presented by Jeremy Griffith. You can watch the interview to get a deeper insight into what the human condition content is all about. For now, if you haven't already closed your eyes, taken a few deep breaths, and opened your heart to receive the guidance most aligned for you at this time, I invite you to do that now. And if you want to call in your spiritual support team, I just ask that they be here in unconditional love and in support of you and the highest good of you and the highest good of all. Let's find out what card, what affirmation, what guidance is here for you for this beautiful, big lunar solar eclipse. So you got the Queen of Swords. I'm going to read her affirmation and then I'll put it in the camera so that you can pause the video if you're watching replay and write down what the affirmation is. Wow, this is the shortest affirmation I've seen. I speak with wisdom and clarity. Short and sweet for you, my beautiful Capricorn Risings. 11th House Scorpios. This is such a clear message. The Queen of Swords is this very I'm searching for the word besides clear. She's very forthcoming in her advice, her guidance. She's very clear in her communication. She's thought about things for a really long time. She's very wise and she is conscious about when to use her voice and she knows the power of what it is that she says. And she doesn't say anything without thinking about it first, without knowing the value of it first. So definitely this is pointing to speaking with wisdom and clarity in your groups. Definitely for the next 6 months, speaking about humanity with wisdom and clarity, and certainly the human condition material and content. If you understand this material, if you understand what it is that I've been describing, what it is that Jeremy describes in the interview, then it is your role to be communicating this wisdom and knowledge into your groups, into your community, into your work for humanity. It is so vital that we get this understanding as a species. I have been searching my entire life for the root cause of all the suffering of my human family, and nothing I have found gets to the root like this understanding does. It explains all of the other things that we've dealt with. But up to this point, let's give an analogy. Up to this point, we've been dealing with blocks on an individual level, right? And different tools help us to deal with different blocks, different techniques, help us to get to the root, the root cause of one individual block. But what this material does is to help us dismantle the entire wall of made up of all the blocks that we have in our life and in our beings. And it really makes sense that something would have to come along to dismantle the wall, because working on a block by block basis, although it does provide relief, it does not offer us a way to break through to the other side. Whereas this material, this understanding does do that. And you're being invited to speak to your friends, speak in your community, serve humanity in this way. You're being invited to use your voice, to speak this truth, and to offer this knowledge and wisdom, and to speak it with clarity. There's just so much that we can do as a species with this understanding and knowledge. What we can clear, what we can understand, what we can explain, what we can forgive, and it sets us free. So you're here to help do that for humanity. It's part of your focus for the next 6 months. So let me just explain one more time what it is that we're really talking about here, in case you are still struggling to understand this material. And that's something that Jeremy, the guy who found this biological discovery and developed this understanding of the human condition based on this discovery, he talks about what's called the deaf effect, which is difficulty in understanding this material. So if you're experiencing that, just be gentle with yourself and understand that that's something that happens to a lot of people. So what is the human condition? The human condition is a result of an ancestry of the human species that we have been unaware of up until this discovery that Jeremy made. So up to this point, we've thought that we evolved from an animalistic instinctual state, which was competitive, aggressive, and selfishly oriented in order to compete for resources and available mates to perpetuate the species. The biological discovery that Jeremy has made is that our human development is in fact a development that came from a species that was altruistic, meaning they worked cooperatively, collaboratively, and selflessly toward the whole. And this is a big shift in something that we fundamentally believe, that we don't realize plays a huge role in how we interact with society, how we interact with ourselves. Understanding that our instinctual nature is in fact not competitive but cooperative, not angry but loving, not selfish but selfless. And Darwin himself, the guy who came up with the origin of species, left the origin of the human species up to another scientist to discover. He knew he did not understand human development enough to claim that he had found the origin of the human species. He did find the origin of the animalistic species. So this is a big understanding, a big shift, and a big piece of knowledge that we've been missing. How this has contributed to the human condition as we experience it is because of our instinctual orientation. And Jeremy says it was a 10 million year adaptation period for our species of altruistic living, meaning our genes had 10 million years to adapt in an environment that was loving, cooperative, and where the individuals of the group worked for the good of the whole. 2 million years ago, we developed what's called the intellect, the nerve-based learning, And that is the ability of the mind to store memory and to compare past results with future options and potential results from those choices. Now, the intellect is an amazing tool for being able to adapt to changes in the environment much quicker than genetic adaptation, which happens over generations. And the whole organizing principle of our universe in an open system, matter develops to form larger, more stable wholes. That's true for all open systems. The Earth is an open system with energy coming in from the outside, from the sun. And our universe is an open system with energy coming in from the Big Bang to the open system. And so it's true for us here on Earth. It's true for our universe that matter is organizing to form larger, more stable wholes. That's how we get atoms forming molecules, forming microorganisms, those kinds of things, and to forming complex macromolecules such as DNA and developing further from there. So the intellect serves this integrative meaning because it's able to make adaptations in the present moment and in a way that reacts much quicker than genetic development can, because that has to be done over generations. The pitfall, the problem with intellectual adaptation is that it has to learn and has to collect data for a long period of time before it can fully function. And I liken it like this. Like when you were a kid and your parents told you not to do something, and you went ahead and did it anyway because you had to know for yourself why not to do that something. That's essentially the phase that we've been in as humanity for the last 2 million years. Okay, we have been not trusting our instincts, which in this analogy is represented by the parents, and our intellect, which is the rebellious child, has been learning by experience, through their own experience. But what happens to create the human condition is that our intellect has been making choices that are not aligned with the altruistic nature of our species. And that causes conflict within ourselves and conflict within society. So when we were born, we expected this altruistic existence. And when we didn't get that, we started questioning whether or not it wasn't that way because there was something wrong with us. Our intellect was trying to understand. And it was still in the process of developing. It still needed to understand what it was doing. It still had all of these questions to be answered. And now we have the answers. Our human family was an altruistic species. That's why it hurts when we don't encounter a loving, cooperative world. That's why it's so painful to us when our human family is suffering, because we know instinctively that that shouldn't happen, and then we feel guilty. We feel shame. We feel like we've done something wrong to allow that to happen because somehow we've gone against our instinctual program. Our intellect has allowed us, has not stopped us from creating a world where there's suffering for our family. And that is essentially the human condition, the dichotomy between what we want to be true for the world and what appears to be true at this moment in time. But with this understanding, we can truly see the beauty of humanity, the heroic quest we've been on to develop the intellect to continue to form larger, more stable wholes, which is our soul's instinct and desire. And so for you, my beautiful Capricorn Risings, 11th House Scorpios, you're bringing this to communities, to groups, to your friendships. And what this does for groups is, we can't even put it into words because we really haven't seen as a species this kind of cooperation, this kind of love, this kind of collaboration, and this container. We haven't really seen this kind of energy before. And when we are working in groups that, specifically of people who are working with this material, who understand this material, the pitfalls and the things that undermine groups are all symptoms of the human condition. So when we're working in groups with people who don't have these who have resolved these symptoms of the human condition, who are aware of some of the habits that they have, some of the ways that they have been dealing with the human condition, running from the human condition, denying their shadow selves that developed as a response to the human condition. When that's all out in the open and you speak with wisdom and clarity, maybe you're even calling out some behaviors that are still laced in human condition. Maybe that is a function for you, my beautiful 11th house Scorpios. You might have to be the one who is sitting there observing and saying, hey, that behavior is seeking validation. And that's telling me that you don't know you're worthy without validation. You don't know that your soul was born innocent, that your instinctual nature is absolutely worthy. Your intellect has created the story because it didn't know. We have to love our intellect and understand that our intellect has been doing the best it can, and it's been on a heroic journey, and our instincts have been loving our intellect as much as it can with the pain that's caused when we act outside of our instinctual natures. But you might be calling these things out. You might be saying, hey, this behavior that seems to be disrupting this group that we're in is a way that you cope with the human condition. Let's talk a little bit more about the human condition. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going on for you that is creating this coping. I'm going on and on and on here, but it just feels really important to add that part about how this information really helps with groups, really helps to create a group whole that's very stable, right? We talked about the integrative meaning of matter. And so in a group, that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to come together to form a larger, more stable whole. But if the individuals aren't whole, they can't form a larger whole. So you may be the one who is recognizing when an individual in a group isn't whole within themselves, and you may be speaking with wisdom and clarity to help guide them there using the human condition material. I'm going to leave this here. Let me know if this resonates. Let me know if you have questions. And as always, namaste. The universal light within me salutes and honors the universal light within you. Namaste.